Hi, good evening, everyone. It is the final night of the Exceptional Women's Reboot here at Exceptional Living, and we are so excited that you are joining with us tonight. It has been an awesome month as we have been in Women's History Month, and so we are talking to fantabulous women who have been making history of their own in different areas, from relationship coaching. We've dealt with financial management, we've dealt with emotional and mental health, and tonight we're dealing with entrepreneurship and talking about side hustles and all of that we know that in this year we've seen, starting even with last year and going through the pandemic, many people had to figure out how to make some additional money, or they had a business idea and they wanted to put it into fruition. And so tonight we have a business strategist with us to help us understand what it means to handle our business, get our business up and running, whether you are thinking about starting a business to you have a business going and you want to take it to the next level. We're going to touch on all of that tonight. So I'm going to introduce our speaker for the night. And I said, just go ahead and get your notepads ready, get your iPhones, iPads, whatever you got, so that you can get these notes tonight so that you can take your business to the next level. Tonight, we are so excited to have Celina Wilder with us. She is the founder of On Fire Businesses, designed to assist businesses and entrepreneurs with the gaps they may be missing and drive them toward growth. She has combined her knowledge and experience in the areas of operations, strategic planning, engineering, problem solving, business management, and marketing, and has developed proven success strategies. Selena believes that each step in her corporate career journey gave her the skills which are invaluable, and loves to share them with businesses looking for growth. So tonight we are so pleased to have Celina Wilder with us. Welcome, Celina.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited.
I'm excited too because I always love talking to you because you always have such great information. So I know that you've been with us before, but for those who this is their first year joining with us, I think you're in for a treat because she does have such wealth of wisdom to share, for those who are looking to either start a business, those who are already in business and looking to see how they can grow. So what I'm going to do first, I know we read bios and it sounds all great, but I like for people to hear it from the person themselves. So the first thing I always start with is, how did you get to this business?
Um, so if we want to go way back, right? So I have always been an entrepreneur, and I believe that entrepreneurship is necessary. And I always wanted to own a business. I probably didn't say this in our last time we talked about this, but my very first business was a friend of mine decided that we weren't going to do a lemonade stand. We were going to do a carnival, and we were going to invite kids and have them play games and give them gifts, but make them pay to come to her backyard because she had a really big backyard. And we're going to do that. So it's always been my dream to own my own business. So I have started and owned a bunch of different businesses, and I'm still on the journey. This specific On Fire Business Management and My On Fire Life both came from the fact that over time, my love for entrepreneurship, even for myself, led me to learn so much and pull from all of these different places that I had worked to want to help other people. So I wanted a business helping businesses, especially because I lived with, saw, grew up with people who had skills and talents that could get things done, but they might have been missing some of the other pieces, right? So they might have been missing the PR part of it, or they might have been, well, I don't know how to get business licenses, or and I don't know how to go about organizing. Or some people who actually thought they knew how to do everything, and then they got in it and were struggling because they realized, hey, a lot of stuff has to have strategy. And as soon as you hire people, you need to have operations plans. It can't just be willy nilly. And some people have the gift of it all, but that's very few people. So I wanted to help businesses. And then I grew that into my On Fire Life, because when I think about all the people that I worked with over the time with their business, I realized that it may have started with they wanted help with their business, but when you get down deep, you realize people who might struggle with a certain area of business are also struggling with that same area in their life. And so whatever freedoms they don't have in their life are being translated into problems in their business. And and truly, what my real true answer to your question is God kind of gave me this understanding of how much I've always wanted to help people. I want to help people live better lives, whether it's through them having a business or not, but help them live a better life. If that grows into making your entrepreneurship journey and your business journey better, great. If it's just about your life, great also.
Awesome. You've been through a kind of like a zigzag, but you always were heading to a certain direction, and just being able to get what you needed. It's like the preparation stage for where you're going. And I think a lot of people can attest to that, even as they are having ideas about business. But one of the things I want to actually jump off with is, we hear the word entrepreneurship all the time, and everybody thinks that, oh, everybody should be an entrepreneur. Tell us exactly what entrepreneurship is, and maybe like give us some characteristics of what makes a good entrepreneur, because there might be some people who thinking, hey, I can go start a business, but they don't really understand what it means to go into business for yourself. So let's start there.
So I agree with you. Having a business versus entrepreneurship to me are two different things, right? So I believe that I was an entrepreneur when I had a very good corporate job, and I was a single person, and I made dishes that could feed four people because that's how they sell things, right? So I would make food that could feed four people. And so over time, I started selling it to the single guys that I worked with who didn't have good home cooking, And so that was entrepreneurship because I was making money by selling food to the guys, but I was still going to my 9 to 5, right? That's entrepreneurship. It's the spirit of I want to draw in funds and draw in money by selling my gifts, talents, services, or even just sometimes your excess, right? I mean, there are people who are entrepreneurs because they sell out of the things that they would normally have just given to Goodwill or Salvation Army or something like that. Owning a business is different because, and I like how somebody put it. There was I think her name is Mandela. She explained it. Maybe not Mandela, somebody else. But if I'm getting it wrong, she explained it in a way of saying a business is something that, if you were to walk away, you could sell that business to somebody else. So maybe, it offers a service. Now, that's different from having a business license because we need, even as an entrepreneurship, I could be an entrepreneur with a business license or an entrepreneur just making my own, collecting that cash, whatever. But if we're really talking about starting a company, starting a business, and being a business owner, you should be able to sell that business to somebody else. So if it's, hey, I collect things that I find in storage units, and I then resell them online, you could officially sell that business to somebody else. You could sell them the ways that you do it, sell them the licensing of your name, and then give it away. But you could also just be an entrepreneur who that's just what they do to make money.
Well, with that being said, what do you think are some keys that makes a good entrepreneur? Like if somebody's trying to see, do I have what it takes to be an entrepreneur? What are some things that they should think through?
So I think number one, it's drive, passion, and willingness to stay focused towards a goal, right? So, I think we all can be entrepreneurs at any point in time, but if you're going to start a business, um, there's a beginning, there's a growth period, and generally between the beginning and the growth period, there's a whole bunch of work without a lot of money. And so there either has to be a focus point of like, I'm trying to get to selling 50 million, I'm trying to get to selling 50, I'm trying to get here, or the focus point could be money. I'm trying to get to the point where I'm making profit, or I'm trying to get to the point where I'm doing, this, doing that, right? So to me, one of the keys for entrepreneurship is you have to be driven towards an endpoint, towards a focal point. It's funny, in my Bible study, my pastor recently just said that's one of the things, you have to have a focus. So that's another one, the passion for it, because it's going to get hard sometimes. And so you have to love it. You have to love what you're doing. and I'm not saying you just have to love specifically what you're doing, because some people just love making money. They love the hustle. It don't even matter what the hustle is. They love it. So they have the passion for it. And determination. So the focus, determination, passion, those all kind of go together, but they're all needed. And you do have to have a goal. And I think that's a big thing, because a lot of people start businesses and don't have a goal. They're just like, I just thought I could do this, versus because when you say I just thought I could do this, you have no idea. That's more like the person who's just like, I can make a little money on the side, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if you do the I just thought I can do this, then when you either get successful, and then you get to this place where you're like, I don't know what to do now that I'm successful, or it's not working and you don't have a strategy to have a reason to keep going. So I can say I had a business, and I started a business, and I loved what I was doing. I was very successful. I had a food company. It was wonderful. I mean, it just popped off so well, so easily. I got sponsorships. I got like so many things. And then I got into it, and in the beginning, when I was teaching, when I was making little things for people, when I was doing certain things, and I'm not talking about the food business where I was just selling my 9 to 5.
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking about this was my full time. And then it got to the point where people started wanting me to cater, and people started wanting me to do things. And that's what people wanted more. That's what the market wanted more. And I realized I don't want to cater. I don't like cooking mass amounts of food for people. I like certain parts of it. I like the creativity. I like the teaching people how they can eat healthier. I like all of those parts of it, but I didn't like when it got to a bigger scale. I didn't want to go any further. And that was because I didn't have a purpose for my business. My purpose for my business was, hey, I've learned something. I enjoy this. I think I can offer this to the world, but I didn't have a goal for it. And so when it got big, I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. Like, and so without a goal, you're just kind of, you kind of get to this point where you have to ask yourself something, and it's better to ask yourself that thing beforehand than towards the end.
I think that's a very valid point. That I think we've seen it push so much that everybody should start a business, and you should do something. But it's like, ask yourself, like, what do I really want to do? And if it does grow into something so huge, am I going to stick with it? Is it going to be what I want? I know somebody who loves to bake, and I always like, oh well, have you ever thought about starting a business? She was like, I wouldn't love it anymore. And so she
Yes.
was like, I will do it for people who ask, but I don't want it to be something that I do all the time. And so we have to have that conversation with ourselves about, what is it that I'm looking to do, and what do I want my business to be, and how much am I willing to invest into it to become that, and when is my stopping point, and being okay with that. So I think that's a very important point that we don't hear a lot, because everybody's like, oh, just start a business, just do this. But like you said, I don't want to do that anymore. And how do you get to a place of being okay with that? Because there are, like you said, the market is asking for it. The market was saying, hey, we want you to cater. And how did you pull back and say, I'm not going to do this, and not feel like you were letting people down, or that you were giving up on something?
So I think for that specifically, I had a moment in time where I was going into seminary. So I knew I was going to be busy. So on one hand, it could actually keep the funds up while I was there. But at the same time, it was like, but you're going to have to put in all this work. So there's the number one question: which do you want to do more? Because one is going to slack up a little bit, right? Um, but then I began to keep putting my business out there, what I wanted to offer, and people kept requesting the other thing. And so I had to make a decision of, well, number one, are you willing to go forward with your business? Number two, are you willing to do what the market wants, even if it means you got to do what the market wants for a little bit so you can get to where you want, and then you can do what you want? Are you willing to put in that work? And that's when I realized I'm not that passionate about giving the market what they wanted. And therefore, I'm okay with stepping back. And so what would happen is, at first I would tell people, when they would continue reaching out for my services, I would say, I know you're asking for this, but this is what I offer. If you don't want what I offer, I'm sorry, I have to decline. And then a little over time, it began to dry up because again, what they wanted wasn't what I wanted to offer. And then so, and that's actually happened twice. In two businesses, and my on fire business management, you know, I had a list of things that I help people with. Well, marketing was probably the first on the list. People would see marketing and be like, "You're going to be my marketing person," and I would have to politely decline and say, like, I can. These are the things that I can do for marketing. These are the people that I can hook you up with. I don't want to make marketing my whole business. So if you're not willing to take these things, I'm not willing to put it off. And so I think that I don't think I had to stop the business hard. I think it dried up after I began telling clients like, I'm offering this, you want this. We're not in alignment. Which is another thing that a lot of people who start businesses aren't really always comfortable with. And it's like, you know, you should be able to pick your clients. I know, like, maybe not early on, but like you should be able to say, I, like, I'm sorry, we are not going to be compatible clients because you want something that I'm not willing to offer. And you kind of exit out of the market when you do that. Like, you don't have to make a step back. You literally are making an internal step to say, I'm not willing to do something that I don't want to do. And those decisions will mean that your clients will, if that's what they want, they'll go somewhere else.
Well, so what I hear you saying is that basically, as you are developing your business, that you need to have some level of clarity about what service you actually want to offer and being able to hold to that and not just, I'm going to be everything to everybody, which ends up burning a lot of
Yeah.
people out because I'm just trying to make money. But if you're really going to build something that lasts, is being clear about what is it that I'm willing to offer and what do I feel like I can, how far can I go with that?
Yes. And so it's better if you plan that stuff out ahead of time. But sometimes you don't know that until you get into it, right? So I didn't realize that when I was offering healthy food choices for people, that people really don't want to learn how to cook healthy. They just want you to make it for them. And so that's kind of I could have done some market research and maybe figure that out. But even if I didn't, when I got in there, I'm like, okay, I'm learning what the market wants, right? And then the same thing with the marketing, right? I didn't realize that making marketing my first list on a whole bullet points of list was going to mean that stood out for people. It let me know that was a pain point for businesses. They needed help with marketing. So it's trial and error and growth. But how much better would it have been if I had put that in my plan ahead of time to say, people are going to want marketing. Maybe don't put marketing as the first thing on your list because that's going to attract people who all they want is for you to just plan out their marketing.
Well, with that being said, and that you've tried a few things, how do you, let's talk about this whole thing about side hustles. That some people are not trying to be full blown business just yet. That might be the starting point is starting a side hustle. How do you define side hustle and how do you have that side hustle while trying to work a full-time job?
So I say a side hustle is a thing that increases your income that is not your 9 to 5, right? So whatever, if it means money coming in, and the reason why I say it like that is because some people think they have side hustles, but they side hustle actually cost them money, which
Mm.
just saying, if you know how to do your taxes, that should never happen. But y'all can ask me about the taxes later because I am a proponent of our tax laws are written for business owners.
Okay.
So tax laws are made for you to own a business. Or I should say the other way around. Tax laws are made to benefit businesses.
Mm-hmm.
So if people do side hustles and they're not getting the tax benefits of their side hustles, you're not working the side hustle right. But that being said, if you are actually just making money just to add to your income, that's what I include as a side hustle. And I forgive me because I forgot the other part of your question, but I know you asked like, what do you consider a side hustle? And I just consider it additional income, you don't have a goal for it, you don't have a plan to, maybe not yet, you don't have a plan to build it up. You just know I have a way to bring in extra cash outside of my 9 to 5 regular W-2 paycheck.
The other part of it was, how do you handle dealing with or maintaining, maintaining, working through a side hustle while you're working your 9 to 5? Because I know some people start the side hustle, they just want to make a little bit of money, but then it starts to increase, and now you got to try to juggle both, and then being able to make that plan or scale it to say, okay, I know that I'm headed towards this becoming my full-time job.
Yeah, so I will say that the number one key for me is constant reevaluation, constant check-in points, right? So um, again, some people do side hustles because they have tapped into the secret of your side hustle, and the money that you spend on your side hustle, can be a good tax write-off, right? And so they just want to keep that going, or your side hustle can just bring in a few extra funds and you just want to keep that going, right? But at every point in time, you got to stop and reevaluate. Am I doing this because it's really a hobby that I kind of make money off of? If that's the case, yeah, great, keep doing it as long as you're not stressed. Because if it's something that still pleases you, but you make money off of, if it's something that you can still do, and it's not stressing you out and it brings that extra money in, great. If it's something that still pleases you and it doesn't stress you out and it's getting that tax write-off, great, right? But if you get to the point where you're like, okay, work is starting to clash with side hustle and I don't know which one to choose, that's your first reevaluation point. So I feel like at every point that you need to have, and honestly, if you plan them, it's better, but sometimes you don't get to plan them. So sometimes it's like, whoa, this is getting hard. Let me stop and reevaluate. So then you start asking yourself a few questions. Number one, is this a future goal-oriented item that I need to risk my health, my stress, my time, my potential time with my family, my you know, everything. I'm doing well on my job, because sometimes we could sacrifice doing well on our job for that. Is this something that is a future enough thing and something that I want bad enough that I need to risk the job for it, right? Or I need to risk my family time or my just alone time, because side hustles plus 9 to 5s mean you missing out on a bunch of different things. It might mean you missing church on Sunday. It might mean you missing that spa day that you only get once a month, but you don't have time for it, right? So that's the first evaluation point. And then the evaluation point, you should be asking yourself a couple questions. Number one, is this a future thing? Can I make this work even further? If so, am I willing to put in the time and effort to make it that way? And then the third thing is, what time and effort am I willing to put in? Meaning, okay, I am willing to put in time and effort, but I'm only willing to put in 3 hours a night. So that means if I work 8 hour day, that's, that means I'm willing to work 11 hours a day.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe it's, what, this is a good thing, but I'm only willing to put in 5 hours on the weekend. So that's 5 hours a week. And so then you get to ask yourself, what can get done for 5 hours a week? And you might say, I can't do that, right? So let's say you're a content creator on the side for people's social media, right? Or you're helping people with their marketing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you do that and you say, I do all of my content creation on Saturdays between 10 to 3, that's my 5 hours. I do everything in that block of time. I can do that. And later I'll come to another checkpoint, and at that checkpoint, I'll evaluate where we're going to go next, right? But I basically think the first time that it becomes a little too hard to do the side hustle in the business, that's your first checkpoint of, should I be doing this? Is there a future goal? If there's a future goal, am I willing to risk the things that I'm willing to risk it? If so, how much am I willing to risk it? And for the amount of things that I'm willing to risk, is it even going to be helpful, right? So if you know that you're only willing to give up that 5 hours on a Saturday to do your content creation, but your customers are going to want to call you throughout the week, is that really going to work, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you're only willing to give up that 5 hours on a Saturday, but that's only going to grow you 3 followers, a week, is that enough growth for you? Is that going to meet your future goal? So it's kind of like a loop. What's my future goal? Is it worth it? Am I actually going to am I actually willing to risk the things that I'm willing to risk to get that goal? How much time am I willing to risk? And then it goes back. Is that amount of time that I'm willing to risk going to go all the way back to meeting the goal? Because if it's not meeting the goal, then your circle is broken, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're saying, I'm willing to risk 5 hours. And it's like, okay, well, you risk 5 hours, but 5 hours isn't going to make that future goal.
Right.
So you either need to go back through that circle again, or you need to at least ask yourself the second question. Are you willing to risk doing more, right? And so then you kind of go through it again. Well, I am. And sometimes it's a trial and error, right? Sometimes it's, I've got this big someone put in a big order, right? I'm going to try it one time, see how bad it is for me, and then go, can I do this again? Okay, we'll do it again, and if not, sometimes, like, I really respect a lot of ways people are doing it now, where they're limiting things. Like, so for example, I have my assistant started a wonderful business, but they have a limited amount of things that they sell, right? So they have like very unique stuff, and they're selling their things. So it's called Geek Chic. Love it. Geek Chic Cosmetics. But they don't buy a million of each thing, right? They buy some of each thing. Therefore, if it's sold out, it's sold out. That's a good way to limit your business, is saying, I got 20 of these. I think these are great. You guys should buy them from me. After they're gone, I can't help you, like, so, and we could do that in other ways too, just limiting like how much we are offering to people.
So it sounds like, really, when we started talking about this whole business, whether it's side hustle, entrepreneurship, starting a business, either way, it's all about really doing the internal work of starting to ask yourself some very important questions, because we can get geeked looking on social media, on Instagram, TikTok, everywhere, and you seeing people doing these amazing things. But you have to start asking yourself the important questions before you can get there. And I think one of the important questions that we also have to evaluate is, it may not be that you don't want to do it, you don't want to make the investment, but there's the fear. Fear is a big reason why people don't take that leap. What would you say to somebody who is watching tonight, who may be like, I feel like I want to start a business, I feel like I might be an entrepreneur, or I want to do a side hustle, but fear is gripping me?
So I will say this is the best time to have a great example of fear and why it is a lie in many cases, right? I think I always hear my best friend says false evidence appearing real, right? FEAR, false evidence appearing real. So if you think about it, the pandemic hit, and then, people lost their jobs, right? They were relying on a paycheck, only to find out no matter how good they did at their job, they could still have lost their job, right? So the problem with fear is it's a lie. It's saying that you will definitely fail over here, but over here you'll be comfortable. Well, we found out in this pandemic that what you thought was comfortable is not necessarily comfortable. And it's also no more or less scary than this thing over here. So then you begin to just ask questions like, okay, so if I didn't fear this thing, would I do it? If I didn't fear the money, would I do it? So I had a lot of people that would say, I will do a business, I'll start a side hustle, I'll do all this, but I'm gonna keep my 9 to 5 because it pays my medical bills. It has medical bills. Well, and many times we are culturally, I'm gonna say this is trying to not be as demeaning as possible, but at many times we are culturally intelligent, meaning we hear people say things like, well, you're not going to have health insurance, so you better not do that, right?
Right.
Well, there's times if you actually really look at how much it would cost for you to just go get a health insurance plan versus how much your company is charging you for health insurance, it's actually not helping you. You could be just as well off, making your money over here and getting your own health insurance. Same thing with taxes, right? Because we're so fearful of IRS and the tax laws and everything, we think of things like, well, I'm not going to change my W-2 status and and get less taken out of my check. Well, why? Why aren't you going to get less taken out of your check? Because you could get less taken out of your check, put that money specifically to your business, not just let it fly all around, right? Put that money specifically to your business, and then yeah, you're going to have less of a tax return come tax return time. But honestly, if you play it right, if you use that for business expenses, you
Mhm,
get to keep reducing your income on your taxes, right?
mhm.
So you actually could actually get more back. But even if you don't get more back, even if you do get less back, so what did you trade? You traded being able to do a business for getting less large chunk of money at the end of the year, or in March, April, May, or this year, probably in December by the time they pay it out. So I don't
Right.
know. But but see here, that's another thing, right? There are people who aren't willing to kind of change how they do their taxes, for example, in order to put money towards their business, because they've been expecting this February, March payout from the IRS. You know,
Mhm.
when I got my taxes back last year, I think I got it back what, in November?
Yeah,
That
they
thing
were
that we
they're
were
behind.
that thing that we were dependent on was not
Mhm.
dependable. But this thing over here that we're fearing is just as risky as this, government system that we're holding to. So that's reasons why you shouldn't fear. But also, fear is also a good thing too. It means that you have a proper weight, or hopefully you have a proper weight on the fact that if you do choose to do this, it's gonna be a big deal.
Mhm.
So I don't think people should fear, but I think that fear is helpful to say, okay, so don't get into it unless you know you're going to go all the way through it. You know you're going to push forward. You know you're going to do part A, part B, part C. And it's okay if you decide to not do part D, but um at least you understood the weight of it enough to know that you have to at least be committed to keep going. And that's just not to say that I know people will get to a certain point and say, you know what, I've decided I can't do this. That's
Right.
fine. But I think the fear gives the proper amount of weight to it. But still, we shouldn't put fear we should put fear in its proper place, right? We
Mhm.
fear things because they do have a little weight, right?
Yeah.
But we shouldn't put fear so high that we are in this position of, I think that, this ground over here is stable and this ground over here is shaky. When again, pandemic has shown your ground was not that stable. Your ground was shaky from the get-go.
We believed in the false thing that corporate job would not go away.
And I mean, and it's funny too, because I'm gonna just tell you, even just the little things, right?
Mhm.
I never thought that a company like McDonald's, that took, what was it, 30, 40 years to change the policy on having breakfast all day,
Mhm.
literally in the matter of a week, move their policies so fast, right? So, and I know that's like a weird example, but the example is something that a corporate machine that took a really long time to make a decision that actually people loved, like, oh, we get breakfast all day. When it came to the fact that they were about to lose money because people, because of the pandemic, they changed their policies real quick. Okay, we're gonna do it like this, no touch, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do it. They were able to move it. And so, you know, it's amazing what fear can motivate people to do. And it's amazing that people have a belief of what can never happen. And it's like, I promise you, give people enough
Watch.
motivation, it will do something.
I mean, 'cause we looked at it. Nobody knew that, as I said, a date that we will all remember, March 13th, would become that date that now a year later we're still looking at. We're in this, and so something you just mentioned, like with McDonald's and a lot of other businesses that had to make some quick decisions because they had to figure out how are we gonna make money in the midst of this. They had to pivot some things. And one of
Yep.
the things that I wanted us to discuss tonight is also for those who are already in business and they may be sitting here looking at like, I had this way of thinking about my business, entrepreneurship, side hustle, either one, that we were going to do business this way until we decide to reevaluate. But now we're in a position where we're having to make some decisions. How do people start to look at pivoting when you've had a business structure that basically worked for you. You were good. And then this pandemic hit. And so now learning how to pivot, how to be prepared for the next thing, because something else could come down the pipeline, whether it's personally or as we've seen globally.
So I would say, so if I were to give somebody a visual, I would say if you were driving your car in a direction and you see someone quickly build a brick wall right in front of you, are you going to continue driving your car into that brick wall? Like, and so a lot of people don't think of it like this. I remember I read this book called Deep Change, and it was a part of a church discipleship group, but it was actually a business book that was. And one of the quotes in it is one of my quotes I usually have on my websites. It says, um, "People who don't choose the deep change are willing to do the slow death."
Wow.
Which means if your idea of pivoting is something huge and unmovable, then that means you're willing to keep going towards destruction, um, just because you don't like change. And I think of it in terms of, if you have a child and you were giving your child advice, right? And your child, every day, you know, for you know 10 months or whatever, like every single day your child would not, let's use current times, right?
Hmm.
Your child doesn't plug their iPad up, right? And the iPad dies every single time. And every single time the iPad dies, the child cries and kicks and screams or whatever, right? As a parent, you would begin teaching that child the necessity of, hey, why don't we change our patterns, right? Why don't we remember that we're going to be sad when the iPad dies? So let's charge the iPad up and let's put that in your routine, right? It's a change. It's something you might not want to do. And the reason why I'm using a child is very purposeful, because sometimes we be acting like kids. We be like, I didn't want to do that. That's not what I planned to do. That's not what I planned. Okay. So you either need to exit, you need to crash into the wall, or you need to pivot towards success, right?
Hmm.
Which one you gonna choose? Because if we were to tell that child that it's okay to not plug their iPad up every day, and every day sit there and listen to them cry and scream and whatever because the iPad died and they couldn't watch their little YouTube video or whatever, we would be giving bad advice. So you kind of have to step back on yourself and ask yourself, if I was a parent, somebody who cared about me, how would I give the advice to myself? Do you keep going towards that wall and crash? Or do you say, you know what? There is another way. Let's find it. It's not the way I wanted to go. I'm going to try to make a plan to get back to the way I do want to go, but I bet you we can find another way. And I know for me, it's pivoting is an act of faith,
Hmm.
right? It's my belief that God has wonderful things for me. Therefore, I don't believe that He would want me to keep going in a direction that's going to hurt me. Instead, if I ask Him, help me pivot, I'm scared of this pivoting. Can you help me? I believe that He would provide the help. And I believe that you would be led in the right ways. So the idea that you have to not pivot, it is kind of like telling the child to keep not plugging that iPad up. Just keep letting it die every day.
Because we don't know how long this is going to last. We don't know how long. I mean, and even once it's over, one of the things I tell people all the time, there's no guarantee that you're going to go back to how it was. And so if you're going to make whatever your entity is survive, you have to think about, what if this was permanent versus I'm just waiting for the change to happen. And so looking at what can we do to make sure that even if this is how we have to stay for another 6 to 12 months, that my business will survive, whatever my case is. And so I think that's very important. Like you said, you got to figure out, like, you can't see pivoting. And I mean, we are, none of us really like change, but you have to understand, just like you're going to have change in your life, you're going to have change in your business. And we have to get to a place where we start helping people to see, what are some changes I need to make so that I can be able to sustain in this season.
And I want to say this, maybe this will really help people. There is no business that is operating exactly the way they started. There is not one business anywhere ever that is operating the way they started from the very first time. So it's inevitable that there will be change in business, whether it's forced upon you or honestly, it's you know, something like the pandemic, of course, it's kind of forced upon us, but it always should be us stopping and evaluating and making the change because we think this is the better decision, a better way to go, right? Now, that's not the same for a side hustle, right? There's probably side hustles that you operating it the same way you operated it back in the day. You might even still be charging the same amount that you charged back in the day. I wish people who did braids still charging what they did back in the day because costs a lot to get braids nowadays. Like it's a lot. Not my girl though. She be wonderful. But you know, I hear people talking about. Somebody was telling me they spent $500 on braids. I said, "Oh Lord!" I remember like paying just. I remember paying, you know, less than $100 to get some braids. You know, but even that's a side hustle for some people. But yeah, you're not doing it the exact same way you did it back in the day. And you know, and again, you know, because the market has changed, if you still doing braids out of, you know, out of your garage and the person ain't got a TV to watch or nothing, and you know our attention span is different, you're gonna lose some customers, right? So nowadays you're gonna have to provide a little entertainment. You're gonna have to at least have some music playing, something. Make sure a charger is nearby so the people can have their phone and be. And I'm using this example that I heard recently, so I'm just literally like astounded by this one example, but it's like, yeah, that might have worked in business back in the day, but this is clearly could just be a side hustle. And even that has had to change how we do it. So people who want to do businesses or even side hustles, you need to know it's not your change is inevitable. You might want to stop fearing it or stop trying to make that money, one or the other.
And preparing for the next change, knowing that it's going to happen again, and thinking now, like we saw this taught us all a big lesson. And so now it's like, okay, what do I need to do to safeguard for the next thing? And so I think that's where,
Yes.
you know, even dealing with having somebody like a business strategist to sit down with and say, hey, I want to be prepared for the next shift. And so whatever happens, I want to know that my business can be sustained. As we are talking about people making these changes in place, what are some things that people need to start looking at if they're talking about even starting a business, starting to be that entrepreneur, dealing with growing their business? What are some, I say, tips that they need to start looking at? What are some things we need to start? Where do we start if we say, I don't know where to start? What do I need to do first?
I think so first would be that question we talked about. Number one, what is your goal? Is your goal just to make money? If so, how much? Like put a number to it. Is your goal to get big? Is your goal to get famous? Is your goal to get awareness out? Is your goal to help people? Because, and I'll take a side note for a second. You know, a lot of my business goals were to help people, but that's not a quantifiable goal, right? How are you going to help people? How many people are you going to help? What do you consider help? Like, if they left and just heard your information, was that helping them? Like, you have to define those things. Like, what is your goal with this? So that's number one. Number two is, who would your clients be? And if you can't name at least 5 people that you know would be your clients, then you might need to think a little deeper. Like, okay, um, I know my clients would be this type of person, but I don't know any of these type of people. So what would I have to do to find these type of people, right? So I had I had looked into event spaces, and I had talked to somebody, and he asked me a question. Well, who would your clients be? And I said, well, my clients would be anybody who wants to come to an event space and all the time. So I know that that client is there. I can, and so he said, he asked me the next question. Okay, make a list of all the people you think could be clients. And then sometimes when you write out that list, you might be like, oh man, I mean, I think they could be clients,
Mhm.
but would they work with me specifically, right? So now you have, what's your goal? Who are your clients? And I'll give you a great example, right? So the company I mentioned earlier, Geek Chic,
Mhm.
Geek Chic Cosmetics, they are anime themed makeup, right?
Okay.
So, and they're two Black women. Um, there is there's a group out there of people who love anime,
Mhm.
um, but don't see themselves represented in anime as Black women. Maybe not as the stick figure anime people, that are that very skinny people who are portrayed sometimes. People who don't look like what they've seen. So there is a group out there of people who really do want that and who are interested in that, and so they could see a clientele, they could see a group, right? That's a great example. So once you have your goal, once you have your list of clients, and really, like, who really are these clients? Like, don't just tell me like, well, there are women out there who want this. No, like, who are these clients? If you right now with social media, it's easy because you can see, if you go to a company like yours or related to yours and you see how many followers are on there, those might be your clients. You see how many people are commenting on the post, those might be your clients. So that's a possible another way to get your list. um, I think once you have your goal and you have your clients, you need to do your why, which is I'm sorry, not why, your how. So the
Mhm.
how is, how are you going to do it? What are you going to need? Like, are you going to need tools? Are you going to need, you know, do you just need a page and that's it? For example, if I was going to start braiding, and I know I will have decided that my how is, I'm gonna make them bring their own hair. So what are my tools? All I need is a place that I'm comfortable for them to meet me at, and my fingers,
Mhm.
and somewhere to market to, some way of doing marketing, right? So that's not a huge how, but you still have decided on your how.
Right.
I've decided that I'm not going to be somebody who does braids by providing the hair for my clients. That way I don't have to worry about it. All I need is a spot, a way of communicating to them, a way of marketing to them, and my fingers, so, and then, but the how could also be, so we've got the goal, we've got the who are you going to be your clients, and then the how is, it could be different for different types of businesses, right? The how is, what resources do you need, but it also is the hours. So we talked about earlier, like, if you're going to start it during your 9 to 5, what hours are you willing to do? How are you going to do this? Are you going to do this in the evenings? Okay,
Mhm.
well, that might only be 4 hours a night. Are you willing to put in 20 hours a week? And is 20 hours a week going to be enough? So there's that loop again, right? Is
Mhm.
20 hours a week going to be enough to get to you to your goal? Um, I think those are the first big things. If you can answer all those questions and have details, right? I'm not saying write a business plan, but really have details. Why am I doing this? Who's going to be the receiver of these things? And how am I going to make it happen? I think that's a big first step, because, and the reason why I say it's a big first step, there's so much work still that needs to be done after that. But I think most people don't even do that step.
Mhm.
And I think that's one of the causes of failure. And even if your why is just because I love doing this, right? That's fine. Then that means your goal is to just do what you love. But then you're still gonna have to ask yourself, how much time are you willing to put in to just do what you love? Um, so I do, I think there are other steps that get in, and maybe, you work with a business strategist, you work with different people who help in each area beyond that. But I think if you start with those three things, answering all of those questions for yourself, you are already farther along than most people who start a business. And then when you can get into, like, how do I get a business license, and how do
Mhm.
I, like, I think all of that stuff is secondary to knowing your why, your who, and your how.
Mhm. And one thing you said that I want to make sure we address in the time we have left is that you were saying that you think this is why some people fail because they don't do this. Why do they not do that? And what are some other markers of that cause people to fail? Because that's one of the things that keeps people fearful is because this fear of failure. But what are some things that can lead to that failure? Like you just said, one is not even just having that conversation with yourself about who your customers are and why you're doing it.
Yeah, so the being honest with yourself, I think, is number one, right? I think the number one is being honest with yourself. The lack of being honest with yourself is one of the biggest causes of the failure, right? So if I was honest with myself about some businesses that I did before, my goal was to do something that I loved, that I thought I was good at, and I thought I could bring to the world, right? But because I never planned out my end goal, it's not I won't say it necessarily failed, but I can say it failed. I evaluated the market, found that the market wanted something different than I wanted to give them. I didn't want to give it to them. I can count that as a failure, right?
Mhm.
So one of the things is definitely not being honest with yourself. So not having that conversation with yourself. The other thing I would say is, if we go to the why and then the who, right? So the who is assuming that people are going to be like you or are going to want what you have, right?
Mhm.
So most people assume that all of their friends who are like, yeah, girl, you should start a business. Yeah, girl, yeah. And then you like, okay, well, I started my braiding business. When you gonna get your hair braided? And you're like, oh, I don't do braids. No, I don't like wearing braids. And then people get really hurt because when they made their list of who was just their friends, right?
Mhm.
And people can support you. So like I can even say, like, if I told like your friend, like if I had a friend who loved baking and I told her she should start a baking business, I don't need to be eating pastries all day. So I'm not about to support you that often, right? I mean, I'm happy that you're going to be a business. I'll support you in, you know, forwarding and sharing your Facebook and your Instagram post, and we will make a funny video together on TikTok. Like we'll do all of these things, right? That's how I'm going to support you. But I'm not about to buy your cakes and your pies and all of that, because then I'm going to eat the cakes and the
Right.
pies. And then we got a whole nother issue going, right? So I think a big failure is assuming that your clients are going to be people you know, um, and just assuming that your clients are, that you know your clients, right?
Mhm.
So like there are people that you're like, well, I know people like to do this. And they're like, they do, but do they like to do it enough to pay for it, right? Or you would even say, I would pay for it. Okay, but are you typical of the majority of people?
Mhm.
So there is, a trend right now of people who are finally realizing that as moms, as women, we are busy, and people are okay with finally saying, I have somebody come in and clean my house. Why? Because it's something that somebody else can do faster, and it's something that somebody else, is better. So you find this person and you like, you should start a cleaning business. You're good at this, right? And then you want to promote it to all your friends, but then you find out your friends don't feel the same way. They feel ashamed at having somebody come clean their house, or they feel like they don't want somebody knowing their business, so they don't want them in their house or
Right.
whatever. So that's when you realize you don't have the same philosophy that everybody else has about a certain topic. So you have to reevaluate your client. So that, I think that's another way of failure. So that's the why, and that's the who. And then the how is kind of underestimating the fact that you're going to have to do reevaluation over and over and over again. So you decided that you were going to buy something wholesale and sell it, and then you find out that like you forgot to calculate in the fact that packaging is going to be,
Mhm.
a lot. Shipping is going to be a lot. So you realize you have to reevaluate. And I don't think the failure is that you have to reevaluate. I think the failure is that most people won't reevaluate. Most people will stop and say, I'm just going to keep going. I know this is not making money, but if I keep working, because the biggest, I would say the overarching biggest thing when it comes to failure is we are told that if we just keep working, that
Mhm.
it'll all work out. And when you are running really hard to the left, but your goal is to the right, it don't matter how hard you run, unless you plan on running all around the world and coming back on the other side, you are not going to make it there. So you
Mhm.
have to reevaluate Like, if this is, you have to stop and reevaluate. Is the direction I'm going to get me to my goal? And I think a lot of people fail to reevaluate.
I think that's a perfect just overarching thought process because we aren't taught that. You listen to the gurus, they're like, oh, if you just stay with it and don't give up. And a lot of times you quit right before the break and all this stuff, but you don't realize that maybe I'm running in the wrong direction. And it's not that I have the whole picture wrong, I'm just in the wrong side of this. And so I think, a lot of people need to take that step back. And I think it might be helpful for a lot of people tonight just looking at where am I and am I in the right direction and what do I need to do to reevaluate that. So with the last couple of minutes, I always like to give the speaker the opportunity. What are some final words of encouragement, challenge, whatever that you would want to give to a woman who wants to be exceptional in her business?
So I would say the biggest key that I think that people need, um, I'm gonna mix it. It's gonna be two things. So number one, I think confidence has been the thing that I have decided is the number one thing that, especially for women, if I'm talking to women, that we don't realize how important it is, right? Confidence will get you in a door that you shouldn't have been in, right? When I started my food business, I would call companies and they would just send me stuff, and I would be like, well, I don't have like a big old restaurant or whatever. And they'd be like, no, but because I was confident on the phone when I called them, or I was confident when I met with them, they knew they were okay. They felt, they were comforted that I can do the job, right? Because I talked like I believed in myself, even though I was kind of scared sometimes. So confidence is one thing, and it's funny because I remember that this one place I was teaching at, they put me on their website as Chef Celina, and at that time it was Celina Green, so Chef
Mm.
Celina Green, and I called them and I was like, no, I'm not a chef, right? I didn't go to culinary school. They were like, so we're not changing the website. Like, you're Chef Celina. Like, and I had to. That was my lesson to be like, oh right, forgot. Right, I'm back confident. Right, Chef Celina. Right, that that's it. Right. So confidence is one, but I will say the other piece, and the reason why I started my On Fire Life is continually working on our own healing. Right. So anything that we are not healed from, our business is not healed from. Anything that we are that anything that's subject to be poked at in our own emotions and in our own life is subject to be an issue in our business. So if you're not constantly working on yourself and working on your own healing, because we all need healing, like, continually. And oh, I loved, I can't remember her name, but the lady who was on the very first week.
Shay, the trauma
Yes, I
healer.
love some of the stuff that she was saying. And I was like, yes, we all need healing from something. And if you're not pursuing healing and pursuing bettering yourself, anything that you're ignoring or avoiding is going to show up in your business. So I think two things: if you are confident and if you are working on yourself and always driving towards self improvement, not just business improvement, but self improvement, then you have the keys to be successful. Even if it's not successful in that business, you have the keys to be successful overall, whether it might be the next business or whether it might be deciding that business isn't for you. But success, um, to me, comes with those two things, comes from those two things. Those are a good foundation.
I think that's powerful because we don't talk when you listen to the business gurus, you go to the seminars and all, nobody talks about the internal work. It's always about having skill set or getting the knowledge, but you have to make sure that you're whole. Because business is going to take everything out of you. There are going to be days that you're going to wonder if you made the right choice. You're going to want to quit. Somebody's going to give you a rejection, all of that. But if you haven't done that work, you won't stay in it. But once you continue to do that improvement, you continue to see that I am worthy of this, I'm worth this, I have something to offer to the world, then you'll stay in it no matter how many sleepless nights you have. And you and I have talked before about people think it looks easy, like, oh, you get it done. Yeah, I get it done, but I haven't slept in 2 days. But, you know, it's because it's that important to me. I understand my worth, I understand my value, I understand what I have to offer. And so I think that is the winning point tonight. And as we talk about being exceptional women, that the way we are exceptional is because we do the work. And so even in our business life, we do the work so that our business is successful and we're able to offer a whole healed person in that work. So I thank you so much for bringing that up because it's so necessary. And I hope somebody tonight realizes that business is not just about what you know upstairs, it's not about your skill set, but it's about the person that you bring to the table. And so, as we are on that journey to being the exceptional woman, we want to be whole, we want to be healed so that we offer our best self even in our business. So I thank you on tonight. As always, I say that you are full of wisdom and you always bring great information. And so tell people how they can connect with you.
So you can go. So almost all of my handles are My On Fire Life. So it's all one word, My On Fire Life. Um, I think my Twitter might be Celina L. Wilder. I'm a little more openly speaking on Twitter, less about business. But my business Facebook is My On Fire Life, at My On Fire Life. My business Instagram is at My On Fire Life. And you liable to get anything because that is my business. My business is being me. That's
I love it. My business is being me. You get
right.
what you come and see. But I think if anybody's out there that's looking for a business strategist, someone to sit down with and really just kind of start talking through the process of what you're looking to do, I think definitely connect with Celina on Instagram, Facebook, go to her website, get information there because she will be able to help you. So, from the bottom of my heart, I am so thankful that you were here tonight and that you took time out. I know you've had a crazy schedule, but I'm grateful. Yeah, we know your schedule is always packed, but I'm always grateful when you have time to set aside to be able to help women be better business owners and start the businesses that they're passionate about. So we are so grateful that we have made it through the month of March, Women's History Month. We're grateful for everybody who has tuned in every Thursday night. If you missed any sessions, you can go to our Facebook page at Exceptional Living Empowerment Coaching, and there you can find all of the previous sessions, or you can follow us now on YouTube at Exceptional Living Empowerment Coaching, and you can find the sessions there. So I encourage you to do so. If you have not ordered your shirt, you can still go to our website, go to our Facebook page, and you'll see the link for all of the Exceptional Woman gear, and just connect with us. If you have not joined our Facebook page, please do so because we'll be having more things coming up and we want to be able to connect with you so that you can learn how to be an exceptional woman living an exceptional life. And that's what we are committed to. I don't care about a pandemic. I don't care about all that other stuff. We can still have our best year, our best life, and be exceptional women. So I'm excited about what's ahead because we all still have much before us to get it done. So I thank each of my guests that have been with us over the course of this month. We've had some great sessions. I pray that if you missed anything, go and watch it because I'm sure it'll be something that you need. And make sure you connect with all of our guests, whether you need mental, emotional health coaching, if you need counseling, if you need business strategies, finances, relationships. All of that was covered this month, and it was a great group of exceptional women that I am glad to know and be able to support their businesses as well. So until next time, we are encouraging you to be the exceptional woman that you are. You're already that, you're just taking it to the next level. We're choosing not to be status quo, but raising the bar so that we set the standard for what it is to be an exceptional woman. So until next time, have a great night. Thank you, Celina.
Thank you. Oh, this is so wonderful.
Good night.
Good night.